Moscow, Idaho. For generations, it was the quintessential American college town, a place where life moved at a gentle pace, where the community felt like family, and the greatest concern was often the outcome of the next Vandals football game. Doors were left unlocked, neighbors knew each other by name, and a sense of safety was woven into the very fabric of the town. But on a cold, dark night, November 13, 2022, that deeply held sense of security was brutally torn away. The illusion of safety was shattered forever. State. Inside a modest rental house on King Road, a place that should have been a sanctuary for its young residents, an act of unspeakable violence unfolded in the silence of the early morning hours. 4 bright, promising lives were extinguished. Madison Magan, Kaylee Goncalves, Shanna Kernold and her boyfriend Ethan Chapin, for students, for friends, for futures stolen in a matter of minutes. In the aftermath, a chilling silence fell over Moscow, quickly replaced by a wave of paralyzing fear. The town that never locked its doors was suddenly buying out every deadbolt in the county. Students, once carefree, now walked in groups, their eyes scanning the shadows. The local police, joined by state and federal investigators, faced an agonizing puzzle. There was no suspect, there was no murder weapon recovered at the scene, and most disturbingly, there was no clear motive. The community was left grappling with a terrifying question: was the killer one of them? The investigation became a national obsession. Every detail was scrutinized, every theory debated. For weeks, the case seemed to be a black hole of unanswered questions. The only tangible leads were a few cryptic clues. A grainy image of a white Hyundai Elantra seen near the crime scene, and a trail of digital breadcrumbs. Faint signals from a cell phone that seemed to vanish into the night. It was these digital ghosts that would eventually lead investigators on a cross-country hunt. A journey that ended thousands of miles away in the Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania. There, in the pre-dawn hours of December 30, 2022, a SWAT team descended on a family home and arrested a 28-year-old PhD student in criminology. His name was Bryan Kohberger. The nation finally had a face to attach to its fears. The arrest was a bombshell, but it was far from the end of the story. It was merely the beginning of a long and arduous legal odyssey that would grip the country for the next 3 years. As Bryan Kohberger was extradited back to Idaho, the prosecution began the monumental task of building its case, brick by painstaking brick. They presented a mountain of circumstantial evidence, each piece a small but crucial part of a larger, horrifying picture. The centerpiece of their case was a single, devastating piece of physical evidence: a leather knife sheath found on the bed next to the bodies of Madison Magan and Kaylee Goncalves. On the snap of that sheath, investigators discovered a tiny trace of DNA. It was what's known as touch DNA, and prosecutors alleged it belonged to one person and one person only: Bryan Kohberger. Then there was the digital evidence. Investigators meticulously reconstructed Kohberger's movements on the night of the murders, using cell tower data. They presented a timeline that showed his phone traveling from his apartment in Pullman, Washington, to the area of the King Road house. A journey that corresponded with the estimated time of the attacks. They claimed his phone was then turned off for a crucial 2-hour window. A period of digital silence that coincided with the time the coroner believed the 4 students were killed. When the phone powered back on, it pinged towers on a route heading away from Moscow, back toward Pullman. And of course, there was the car. Surveillance footage from businesses and homes across Moscow captured a white Hyundai Elantra, the same model Kohberger drove, circling the King Road neighborhood multiple times in the hour leading up to the murders. It was seen arriving, lurking, and then speeding away from the area just minutes after the attacks were thought to have occurred. For the prosecution, it was a predator stalking its prey. But the path to justice is never a straight line. Kohberger's defense team, a formidable group of public defenders, mounted a vigorous and aggressive challenge to every piece of the state's case. They filed motion after motion, questioning the validity of the grand jury that indicted their client, challenging the methods used to analyze the cell phone data, and attacking the very science of investigative genetic genealogy that first pointed law enforcement toward Kohberger. They argued that DNA evidence was not a smoking gun, but a minuscule sample that could have been transferred to the sheath in any number of innocent ways. State. They cast doubt on the cell tower data, claiming it was imprecise and could not definitively place Kohberger inside the house. The trial date, once set, was postponed, and then postponed again. For the families of Madison, Kaylee, Shanna, and Ethan, It was an agonizing limbo. They were forced to relive their darkest day over and over in court filings and media reports, all while waiting for the chance to face their children's alleged killer in a courtroom. The wheels of justice turned, but with excruciating slowness. The world waited for a trial. Then, in August of 2025, something happened that no one truly expected. The trial that had been anticipated for years, the legal showdown that was set to be one of the most watched in modern history, simply never happened. In a stunning turn of events, Bryan Kohberger appeared in a Lotta County courtroom. But this time, his posture was different. The unwavering not guilty plea he had maintained for years was gone. In a move that sent shockwaves through the community and the legal world, he accepted a plea deal offered by the prosecution to spare himself the possibility of facing a firing squad as the death penalty was very much on the table. In Idaho, Bryan Kohberger pleaded guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder. In that moment, the mask of the stoic academic defendant was dropped. The man who had remained a silent, inscrutable figure for nearly 3 years, finally, through his plea, admitted to the unthinkable. There would be no trial, no jury, no lengthy appeals. For the families, it was a bittersweet resolution. It deprived them of a public trial, but granted them what they craved most, a definitive end to the uncertainty. It was justice, delivered not with the drama of a verdict, but with the quiet finality of a signature on a plea agreement. The sentencing, held in late 2025, became the forum for the grief that had been suppressed for so long. One by one, family members of the victims took the stand to deliver their impact statements. Their voices, thick with emotion, filled the silent courtroom. They spoke not of the killer, but of the 4 vibrant souls who were lost. They spoke of the empty chairs at holiday dinners, the birthdays and graduations that would never be celebrated, the weddings that would never be planned. They painted a portrait of 4 lives rich with love, laughter, and limitless potential. A portrait that stood in stark contrast to the hollow emptiness of the man who took it all away. When the last tearful statement was finished, the judge delivered the sentence. The words were unequivocal and final: 4 consecutive life sentences in prison, without the possibility of parole. 1 for Madison, 1 for Kaylee, 1 for Shanna, 1 for Ethan. There would be no chance of freedom ever. Today, Bryan Kohberger is an inmate at the Idaho Maximum Security Institution, a stark, remote fortress known as the Yard. He spends 23 hours a day in a small concrete cell, a world away from the academic halls he once walked. He is inmate number 139,527, a number he will carry for the rest of his life. He is destined to fade into obscurity, a footnote in a dark chapter of history, while the names and faces of his victims are etched into the heart of a nation. Back in Moscow, life has found a new rhythm. The house on King Road is gone, demolished in an act of communal catharsis. In its place, plans are underway for a memorial garden, a place of peace and remembrance. Students once again walk to class without constantly looking over their shoulders. The fear has receded, replaced by a resilient spirit and a solemn memory. The pursuit of justice was long, it was grueling, and it was emotionally and financially costly for everyone involved. But as of early 2026, the case of the University of Idaho murders is officially closed. The legal chapter has ended, but the story of the Idaho 4 will be told for generations to come. May Madison, Kaylee, Shanna, and Ethan finally, and truly, rest in peace. Thanks for watching.